All praise, glory, and honor is most certainly due to the Most High, the God of the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and peace to you in the name of his son, Jesus. My name is Elisha Israel. This is my brother Austin. He's going to be reading for me today, and today's message is concerning the rapture. The rapture. This is one of those topics that no matter how much you read of the Bible showing you that there is no rapture, people really want to believe that there is a rapture. And for those of you that may be confused about that particular doctrine, which is a relatively new doctrine, relatively speaking, it's new. The doctrine of the rapture, the gist of it is this, is that prior to Great Tribulation, the worst time that humanity will ever experience, just prior to that, the Lord is going to take believers off to heaven. And there are a number of versions of the rapture, but mainly it's just prior to Great Tribulation. And it's secret, meaning, all of a sudden, all these people will just disappear. It's been made famous in movies, like Left Behind, that series, and the series of books where they've sold close to 100 million copies. But the book that matters, the Bible, does not support a rapture. Just to show you how asinine this doctrine is, let's go to John. The gospel according to John, and we'll pick it up at verse 33. Just John 7 and verse 33. John 7 and verse 33. When you're ready, just to show you, just this. See, once you put the scriptures together, when you put the gospels together, when you put the New Testament writings, the epistles, and the Old Testament together, Torah together, you find out that a lot of what's being purported in Christianity is a lie. Okay? John 7, and pick it up at verse 33. When you're ready, brother, go ahead.
Then said Jesus unto them, Yet a little while am I with you,
Go ahead.
and then I go unto him that sent me.
Mm-hmm.
Ye shall seek me, and shall not find me.
Go ahead.
And where I am, thither ye cannot come.
And where will he be? Heaven. He's telling you can't come. You're not coming. Nowhere in the Bible does he say, I know this is hard to believe, because I grew up believing this. Half my life I believed that, the righteous, the believers, go to heaven. That's not in the Bible, though. The Bible tells you he made this earth to be inhabited. He's just said, where I go, ye cannot come. You can read earlier in John, the 3rd chapter, he said, no man hath ascended to heaven. No man has actually gone to heaven. And he's telling you here, no man will go to heaven. So what this belief is about the rapture is discounted there. Okay? But we're going to further discount it. Let's pick it up in Matthew, the 24th chapter. Because in the gospel according to Matthew, in the 24th chapter, is where you read about his second coming. Okay? And we're going to pick up some things here. And he talks about great tribulation. But let's pick it up in Matthew 24 and verse 1. When you're ready, brother, you can go ahead and read.
And Jesus went up and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him to show him the buildings of the temple.
So his disciples show him the temple and the buildings of the temple. And what does he prophesy? Verse 2.
And Jesus said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down.
He prophesied of the siege that took place between 66 and 70 AD. The Romans invaded. They ransacked the city. They destroyed the temple, even down, as Josephus says, to the foundation. So it says, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. Verse 3.
And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying,
Go ahead.
Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world?
Okay, so this is somewhat twofold, because the scope of this is like from the time of what they were talking about, what he was prophesying of would take place, but also what's going to take place prior to his coming. So keep that in mind as we continue to read. Let's pick it up at verse 4.
And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you.
Go ahead.
For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many.
And that was going on in the first century. Okay? He said, Take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And the deception is rampant even until this day. Right? That's why Paul talks about another Jesus. Yes, because people have come preaching, they'll say the name of Jesus, or they may even use the Hebrew name, but of the Messiah. Nevertheless, what's the doctrine? So that's what he's telling you. He's warning you of deception. Let's keep reading.
And ye shall hear of wars and a rumor of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet.
He said you'll hear wars and rumors of wars, but that's not the end. What's going to happen?
For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom.
Go ahead.
And there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places.
Is this the beginning?
All these are the beginning of sorrows.
Just the beginning of sorrows, right? For nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. This is prior to his coming. So he said this is just the beginning, and then what's going to happen?
Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted,
Go ahead.
And shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake.
Okay, so he's saying you're going to be persecuted. Now that was going on in the early apostolic age, and it's going to happen again. Wholesale. I'm not talking about just you being rejected by your family because you have some different beliefs that are really actually biblical. And they look at you weird and may say things that are hurtful. No, there's a whole nother level of persecution that's coming. Okay? But that has already taken place. It's just going to happen again. But now, he tells you in verse 11, and many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. What's going to happen? Verse 14.
And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations. And then shall the end come.
Okay, so it's going to be preached. The gospel, it has been preached. That's how people received the adulterated version of Christianity, because the true faith had been, the doctrine of the true faith had been co-opted early on. By the 3rd century, you had edicts banning keeping the Sabbath and venerating Sunday worship. This is in Rome. But now I said, this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. How could you have that doctrine, like I was just referring to, if there was nothing prior to it? Okay, so in the 1st century, the gospel was preached. This is what you're reading about in the epistle letters. That was the Great Commission, to go into all the world, preach the gospel to every creature. And as it spread forth throughout this world, and then it was co-opted, it was adulterated. Leavening was added unto it, all right? But that gospel is going to be preached again, wholesale, the true gospel, prior to his coming. But now, what does he say in verse 15?
When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet,
Go ahead.
stand in the holy place. Whoso readeth, let him understand.
So he says, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Okay, so now when he's talking about the abomination of desolation, let's go to Daniel. Let's go to the book of Daniel. Because what he's telling you, this actually is, let's pick it up in Daniel the 11th chapter. All right, Daniel the 11th chapter. And we'll pick it up. We'll pick it up at Daniel the 11th chapter and verse 21. And when you're ready, brother, you can go ahead.
And in his estate shall stand up a vile person, to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom, but he shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom by flatteries.
Okay, so who is this talking about? This is talking about Antiochus Epiphanes. Okay, and Antiochus Epiphanes, he foreshadows who we would commonly call the Antichrist. Okay, or the abomination of desolation. Let's pick it up at verse 31 and see something he did. When you're ready, brother, you can go ahead and read.
And arms shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength.
Go ahead.
And shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate.
Okay, so what is this referring to? This is referring to Antiochus Epiphanes. Again, he is a prefigure or a foreshadow of the Antichrist, that abomination of desolation. And what did he do? He offered swine on the altar of God. Okay? Of the Most High. So it said, and arms shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate. So he got rid of sacrifices. He he disallowed circumcision, and he offered swine on the altar. This is again, he's an abominable person. But now let's go to 1 Thessalonians 4. We're gonna come back to Matthew, but let's go to 1 Thessalonians 4. Because in 1 Thessalonians, I'm not 4, but 1 Thessalonians 2. Because the Lord is talking about what's going to take place in the future. And we understand that the Romans came in, they destroyed the sanctuary, right? But there's going to be a temple that is built again, okay, that they're trying to build right now. And this abomination of desolation is going, this man of sin, the son of perdition, is going to be there. Let's read this. 1 Thessalonians 2 and verse 1. 2 and 1. Are you ready, brother? 1 second here to get there myself. This is 1 Thessalonians 2 and verse 1. Actually, it's 2 Thessalonians. It's 2 Thessalonians. Yes, 2 Thessalonians 2 and 1. When you ready, brother, go ahead.
Now we beseech you, brethren,
Uh-huh.
by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ,
Go ahead.
and by our gathering together unto him,
Mm-hmm.
that he be not soon shaken in mind, or be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter as from us,
Mm-hmm.
as that the day of Christ is at hand.
So he's telling them, don't be, because one thing about it, they were concerned about his coming, as was his disciples. And the same thing in Paul's day. They say, hey, he's telling them, don't be so anxiety filled. There's some certain things that have to take place before the Lord returns. Let's find out what it is. Verse 3.
Let no man deceive you by any means.
So he's warning of deception, just like Jesus did. He said, let no man deceive you by any means. Why?
For that day shall not come.
What day? The day when the Lord returns. That day shall not come, except what?
Except there come a falling away first.
Go ahead.
And that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition.
So something has to happen before he returns. Number one, he says a falling away. What's a falling away? That's apostasy. Meaning people fall away from the faith. Now that has taken place. But he says something else has to take place. He said that man of sin, and that man of sin be revealed. So before his coming, you will have this man of sin, what they commonly call the Antichrist. Not one with just the spirit of Antichrist, like someone who denies Christ. But no, he is the Antichrist. He said, the man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition or destruction. And what is he going to do?
Who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God.
Go ahead.
Or that is worship,
Mm-hmm.
so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God.
So he's going to sit in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. In order for that to take place, the temple must be around. Because again, this is prior to the second coming of the Messiah. Okay. Now let's go back to Matthew the 24th chapter. Matthew the 24th chapter. And we're going to pick it up at verse 15 again. And when you're ready, brother, go ahead.
When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet,
go ahead,
stand in the holy place. Whoso readeth, let him understand.
Okay, so now he's talking about, again, this is twofold. What the Romans did, they should have done this here at that time too. Verse 16.
Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains.
Go ahead.
And let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house.
He said, then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. So they should have fled back then. Why? Because back then they were killing everybody. Men, women, and children. Old men, young women, they didn't care. They were killing everybody, and then who they didn't kill, they were taken into slavery. So he was saying, you need to flee. You need to get out of here. He said, then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. It would have been good to get out. The same thing is true concerning great tribulation. So now he's going to project it further. Verse 21.
For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time.
Go ahead.
No, nor ever shall be.
Now we know we're talking about something that's further or goes beyond the siege in 70 AD. He said, for then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no ever shall be. Verse 22.
And except those days should be shortened,
Go ahead.
there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days should be shortened.
So now we know we're talking further. We're talking further than what happened in 70 AD for sure. He's telling you even beyond us what was to take place. But now he told you to flee. He never said all these things are going to happen, but don't worry, you're going up yonder. You're going to heaven just prior to this woe. He told you to flee. Now you should have fled in 70 AD, and you need to flee in the time to come. Let's go to the book of Revelation, Revelation the 12th chapter. Never in the Bible is it telling you about a secret rapture, an open rapture. None of that. Right? None of that. He never tells you that you're going to be raptured to heaven where he is. Never. Revelation the 12th, I'm talking about the third heaven. Revelation the 12th chapter and verse 1. The reason I'm speaking like that about heaven because you have to, again, qualify heaven. 3 heavens. You got the earth referred to as heaven in the Bible, where the birds fly and the airplanes fly. That's referred to as heaven in the Bible. But you also have the third heaven, where the Father and the Son are, and no man has gone to that heaven. Let's pick it up at Revelation the 12th chapter and verse 1. Revelation 12 and verse 1. When you're ready, brother, go ahead.
And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars.
We know figuratively this is referring to the nation of Israel. Okay? That's who this woman is. Now let's skip down a bit. Let's go to verse 6. When you're ready, brother, go ahead.
And the woman fled into the wilderness, and she hath a place prepared of God.
Go ahead.
That they should feed her there 1,260 days.
1,260 days. What is that referring to? That's the time of the Great Tribulation. Great Tribulation is 3.5 years. And when you see it in the Bible, the time frames go as this. Time, times, and the dividing of time. That's 3.5 years. 1,260 days. That's 3.5 years. 40 and 2 months. That's 3.5 years. There's no 7-year Great Tribulation, right? Nor is there a rapture. So Great Tribulation is 3.5 years. And during that time, he has a place prepared. I can even show you where this place is. But now it says, and the woman fled into the wilderness where she had a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. We know that's the time of Great Tribulation. Let's hold our finger here and pick up something in the book of Daniel. Let's go back to Daniel real quick. Daniel, the 11th chapter. Because he said go into the wilderness. Now this man, when it starts off in Daniel, part of Daniel, like we read in 21, it's talking about Antiochus Epiphanes. All right? But now in 36, it's talking about that man of sin, the son of perdition, the abomination and desolation. Let's pick it up at 36. When you're ready, brother, go ahead.
Daniel 11 and 36. And the king shall do according to his will.
Go ahead.
And he shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every God.
Go ahead.
And shall speak marvelous things against the God of God.
That sounds like what we were just reading in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. But let's keep reading.
And shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished.
Go ahead.
For that is determined shall be done. Neither shall he regard the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor regard any God, for he shall magnify himself above all.
And this is what the Pope says. He says that he is God on earth. If you look at historically what the Pope has said, and I say Pope because that's who what they call the Antichrist is. He's coming out of the office of the papacy. Okay? But now let's pick it up at verse 41, because we want to find out what he's going to do, because he's going to have the backing of the European Western powers. And I know I'm putting a lot of this in. If you have no background knowledge, you should look at some of the previous lessons we've done on this. But the reunification of the Roman Empire is taking place as we speak. But now let's pick it up. And as they've always had, it's been two-faceted. You had an emperor, you had a pope. Okay, this pope is going to be empowered by Satan. The one that rises during Great Tribulation is going to be empowered by Satan to do miracles and wonders on this earth. He's going to deceive many. Okay, and this is going to be the worst time that man has ever seen. But let's see something else this man is doing. Verse 41.
He shall enter also into the glorious land.
Go ahead.
And many countries shall be overthrown. But these shall escape out of his hand.
Now remember, I'm coming here to show you, like I said, he told the woman shall flee. She fled into the wilderness, a place prepared, a place of safety. Okay. So now he shall enter also into the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape out of his hand. Which are what?
Even Edom and Moab.
Go ahead.
And the chief of the children of Ammon.
Edom, Moab, and Ammon. Look at a biblical map, and that's present day Jordan. So he's going to be conquering the surrounding areas. As for example, it says he shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape, but Jordan will. That's not. I don't believe that to be a coincidence. Let's go back to Revelation 12. So he said in verse 6, and the woman fled into the wilderness. I'm in Revelation 12 and 6. And the woman fled into the wilderness where she had a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. Let's skip down a bit and go to verse 13. Because Satan is going to try to prevent this woman, if you will, Israel, those believers of Israel who are fleeing to the place of safety. He's going to try to prevent that. Verse 13. This is right before Great Tribulation. You're going to have an opportunity to flee. It's not talking. The Bible doesn't tell you you're going to heaven. That's a lie. Verse 13. When you're ready, brother, go ahead.
And when the dragon saw that he was cast into the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man child. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle.
Go ahead.
That she might fly into the wilderness, into her place where she is nourished for a time.
Go ahead.
And a time.
Go ahead.
And a half a time.
3.5 years. 1,260 days. She's going to be in the wilderness. Let's keep reading.
From the face of the serpent.
And it said from the face of the serpent, because the serpent or Satan is behind these kingdoms, and he's going to be behind he's going to empower this man to sin. Let's keep reading.
And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman.
Go ahead.
That he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman. And the earth opened up her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth.
So he was not able to overcome them with this flood. But now let's see what else it says. Verse 17.
And the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed.
Go ahead.
Which kept the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ.
A couple of things we can conclude. So some got away. Some of the believers got away, but all believers not going to get away. It said, and the dragon was wroth with the woman. So he was angry and went to make war with the remnant of her seed. Now, how's he making war? He's making war with the remnant of her seed through this man of sin. We're going to read that. But now it says, her seed, they do what? Keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. They couple their faith with obedience. It's not enough to say you just believe. Faith without works is dead. Okay? So now, that also tells us again that some are going to die. Some believers are going to die. Nobody's being raptured, and everybody's not making it to the place of safety. I heard one say years ago, when I was first, this is like 20 years ago, when I was first hearing this notion of a place of safety, and during Great Tribulation, and one said to me, if you don't make it to the place of safety, you might as well just give up. That's not actually the wrong attitude to have. We're going to show you the attitude you need to have if you by chance find yourself in Great Tribulation. But one thing you should not do is wait on a rapture. You'll be waiting and waiting and waiting, and no rapture will come. That bus is not coming. Let's go to Daniel the 7th chapter. Because it said he's going to make war with the saints. Let's pick it up at Daniel the 7th chapter. And we'll pick it up at verse 20. Daniel 7 and verse, let's pick it up at verse 20. That's fine. When you're ready, brother, go ahead.
And of the 10 horns that were in his head, of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell,
go ahead.
Even of that horn that had eyes, and a mouth that spake very great things.
Go ahead.
Whose look was more stout than his fellows.
He's a little different from those who've come before him. And what is he going to do?
I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints.
Go ahead.
And prevailed against them.
This is during Great Tribulation. Until when?
Until the Ancient of Days came. And what? And judgment was given to the saints of the Most High.
Go ahead.
And the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom.
Go ahead.
Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon the earth.
Go ahead.
Which shall be diverse from all kingdoms,
Uh-huh.
and shall devour the whole earth,
Go
and
ahead.
shall tread it down, and break it in pieces.
Go ahead.
And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise,
Mm-hmm.
and another shall arise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings.
So you have some that have tried to revive this fourth kingdom. Okay? The fourth kingdom is Rome. Rome is being reunified as we speak. We can call it the EU. Let's say the name changes, but the concept of where you have all these powers in Rome, all their militaries together, their economy together. You're seeing the separation. You're seeing the dividing line, the line truly drawn in the sand about who's going to reign supreme on this earth. This is, of course, prior to the second coming of Christ. You had the Western powers against the Eastern powers. Okay? You had the reunification of Rome, the West, of which the United States is an extension of. The United States will be moved out of the way. But now let's pick it up and will not be as prominent as it is now. But let's see something else that this one is going to do. Verse 25.
And he shall speak great words against the Most High.
And we read in Revelation 12 that Satan was going to make war with, he's going to make war with the saints, right? This is what we're reading here. Judgment was given to the saints after. But let's see what's going to happen during Great Tribulation. It says, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and what?
And shall wear out the saints of the Most High.
And shall wear out the saints of the Most High. And what else?
And think to change times and laws.
When?
And they shall be given into his hand until a time.
1 year. Go ahead.
And times.
2 years.
And the dividing of time.
That's 1 plus 2 is 3. And the dividing of a time is a half. That's 3.5 years. We keep seeing that. That's the time of the Great Tribulation. You know, they had this doctrine of you got Great Tribulation or 3.5 years, and then you got the rapture, then another 3.5 years of turmoil and Great Tribulation. No, 7 years Great Tribulation. No, it's only 3.5 years. And at no point before tribulation or in the middle of tribulation do you have a rapture. What you find, though, is those that don't make it to the place of safety. Remember, that's in Jordan. That place of safety, if you don't make it there, there's no rapture for you. So what kind of mindset should you have? Well, let's stay in Daniel, the book of Daniel. And we'll pick it up in Daniel, the 3rd chapter. Before we read in Daniel, the 3rd chapter, let's hold our finger in Daniel, the 3rd chapter. Let's go to Revelation, the 13th chapter, quickly. Revelation 13, and we'll pick it up here because we want to find out what this man is going to do. All right. Let's pick it up at verse 5. When you're ready, brother, go ahead.
And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months.
Again, now we read where he said, it says, a mouth speaking great things. We read a similar thing in Daniel, right? The 7th chapter. But then it says, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. That's 3.5 years. Time times in the dividing of time, 1260 days. What's he going to do? Verse 6.
And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name,
go ahead,
and his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven.
Go ahead.
And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations.
Okay, so he's making war with who? The saints. And to overcome them. See, some saints are going to die. Okay? Let's skip down to verse 11, because we're going to see something else that's going to be going on during Great Tribulation. When you're ready, brother, go ahead.
And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And he exerciseth all of the power of the first beast before him.
Go ahead.
And causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed.
Go ahead. So when it says his deadly wound was healed, because all the others, you had the Babylonians, you had the Medo-Persians, you had the Greeks, then you had Rome. Now, Rome seemed to have fallen many years ago, but what kept it alive was a spiritual faction. That's Catholicism. So it's like Catholicism has been, the Catholic Church has been dragging this corpse, seemingly dead, for these many years. And now it's starting to smack them in the face and wake up. It's starting to wake up in Europe. You're starting to see it be reunified. And you're going to certainly see the power of it during Great Tribulation. But now let's keep reading.
And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men.
Okay, so he's going to have lightning come down from heaven. Let's keep reading.
And deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles.
Again, beware of deception. Go ahead.
Which he had power to do on the sight of the beast.
What else is he going to do?
Saying to them that dwell in the earth, that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live.
Go ahead.
And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed.
So he's gonna make a statue, if you will, an image of the beast that you're supposed to worship, and if you don't worship, you'll be killed. Okay. What else?
And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads.
Okay, so now this speaks to perhaps the technology that you can see now the technological advances that have taken place, that something like this is quite possible. You can see it with digital currencies, how this is quite possible, how you can be totally controlled, and how people using RFID chips, people using e-tattoos, people using biometrics. All of these things could work in order to bring this about, or it could be something else. The main thing is you better not take this mark. You're going to find out what happens to you if you take the mark. He said that no man might buy or sell save except he had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Okay? Now, let's hold our finger here and go to Revelation 14, next chapter, and read verse 9. Because what happens if you take this mark that this man is going to try to force you to take? If you don't take it, he's going to kill you. But if you do take it, what's going to happen? Verse 9.
And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand,
go ahead.
The same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb.
Go ahead.
And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever. And they have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name.
So now what's going to happen to you if you take the mark? You're going to hell. So you can't take the mark of the beast. You can't try to convince yourself, well, the Lord wouldn't want me to die. Yes, he wants you to give up your life for your faith. He told you, take up your cross and follow me. Cross is something to kill people on. Right? That's something about Christ people don't want to accept. Yeah, he be willing for you to die, or he would want you to die than to leave your faith. That's what he did. He said, "Oh, my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but thy will be done." Read verse 12 for good measure. Go ahead.
Here is the patience of the saints.
Go ahead.
Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus.
You got a couple of two. But now let's go back to Revelation 13. Because I want to, actually, let's go to Daniel. Now let's go to Daniel 3. Because I was going to tell you the number of his name. It's 666, okay? When you read it. And what that means is, that's how you identify him. You know, that number. It says, here is wisdom, let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 603 score and 6. 666. That's vicarious filling, the vicar of Christ. One of the titles, some say it's unofficial, nevertheless, it is a title of the Pope. The popes of Rome carry that title. Vicar of Christ, the replacement for the Son of God. I can't read where he have a replacement. That's the blasphemy. That's you saying, read some of the blasphemous things that these men have said in the past. Christ on earth. All these things. They are hypocrites, but that's what they claim to be. But back to Daniel, the 3rd chapter. Because what should be your response? Should you be waiting on the rapture? Your faith is going to crumble when you realize there's no rapture and it's either you bow down or beheaded. It'd be better for you to be beheaded for your faith because you actually have something to hold on to. But if you're standing and your foundation is pudding, you're going to fold when you've been wanting your whole life, like so many people, to be raptured, and there is no rapture. Daniel, the third chapter, excuse me. So I just want to read the response that these three said to King when he built an image and wanted people to bow down and worship. This is not new. Let's pick it up in Daniel, the 3rd chapter and verse 16. When you're ready, brother, go ahead.
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king,
Go ahead.
O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter.
Go ahead.
If it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thine hand, O king.
Go ahead.
But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods,
Go ahead.
nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up.
And that's how you have to be. Let it be known. That has to be your stance in great tribulation. And that's in order to do something like that, you have to already be strengthened in your faith. But if you walking around with this foolish notion about you going to be raptured off to heaven, and then when you're confronted with that, you know what you're going to do? You're going to bow down. Because you're going to realize you've been dealing with a lie. It'd be better for you to say, hey, I know that's it's time to flee to go during great tribulation. That's the escape. But if not, I'm preparing myself now to give up my life if necessary. This is the mindset you have to have. Not something that's rooted in falsehood. Now, where did this come from? Let's go to 1 Thessalonians 4. Where did this notion of a rapture even come from? Well, it was popularized by John Nelson Darby, as well as C.I. Scofield. You may see Scofield Bibles, in which you read the commentary in the Bible, the biblical notes in the Bible. It talks about a rapture. There is no rapture. There is no rapture. We see saints getting wore out, being killed. We see that there's an escape, which is to flee into the wilderness, which is present day Jordan. That's prior to Great Tribulation. But you don't see where you're going to go off into heaven. This is 1 Thessalonians 4, and we'll pick it up at verse 13. Because where did they get this from? Actually, we're gonna read it. We're gonna skip down at verse 17, and let's read. This is commonly, we were just talking about this. This is commonly used to justify the doctrine of the rapture. 1 Thessalonians 4 and 17. When you're ready, brother, go ahead.
Then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds.
Go ahead.
To meet the Lord in the air. And so shall we ever be with the Lord.
If you just read this and close the book, you could come to all kinds of conclusions. It's just some false prophet came to you and said, hey, listen, this is talking about a rapture. And you want to believe that. You want to believe that you don't have to suffer. That's your problem now. When life is suffering, you come to Christ is suffering. Paul said, all the godly in Christ Jesus shall suffer persecution. You cannot get around it. Read this book and you see even from the time of Cain and Abel, the righteous have what? Suffered. You don't want to suffer. Look at Paul's life, full of suffering. He said, I'm going to show all the things that he must suffer. All this is suffering, but you must endure unto the end. Let's pick it up at verse 13 so we can read context. So you're no longer led astray by false doctrine. I know what it is. People going to read this. You haven't read about a rapture. And this is not about a rapture either. We're going to find out what this is about, but people still want to believe it. My job is just to show it to you. I can't force you to believe. If a mind is a terrible thing to waste, it's just a terrible thing to waste. This is verse 13. When you're ready, brother, go ahead.
But I will not have you to be ignorant,
go ahead,
brethren, concerning them which are asleep, that ye sorrow not,
go ahead,
even as others which have no hope.
So he's saying, I don't want you to be so sorrowful or overwhelmed with sorrow for those who are asleep. That means those who are dead. He's talking about those who have died already. This is the context of this. Let's keep reading.
For if we believe that Jesus died and rose again,
that's something we believe in. Go ahead.
Even so, them also which sleep in Jesus will God bring with him.
He said, even so, them also which sleep in Jesus will God bring with him. So now you're talking about the resurrection. This is talking about the death of man and of the saints and resurrection. Hold our finger here and go to Matthew 24. Because he said he's going to bring him at his coming. When is he coming? When is the Lord coming? Matthew 24 and verse 29. It's really time out to be ignorant. It's too late in the day. Matthew 24 and 29. When you're ready, brother, go ahead and read.
Immediately after the tribulation of those days,
go ahead.
Shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven.
Go ahead.
And the powers of the heavens shall be shaken.
That's the sign of the second coming of Christ. Remember, they asked him, tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? So he talked about tribulation. Then he said, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, the moon shall not give a light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. Keep reading.
And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven.
Go ahead.
And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn.
Go ahead.
And they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory.
So he's not coming until, let's go back to Thessalonians. He's not coming until immediately after the great tribulation. Now, how long is that? 3.5 years. He's not going to rapture you up to heaven, come to rapture you up into heaven, then come again. No. He's coming one time, and that's immediately after the great tribulation. And here, this is talking about the death and the resurrection. He's going to bring the saints when he comes. So it says, for if we believe that Jesus died and rose again, even so them also which sleep in Jesus will God bring with him, also those who have died in Christ. Verse 15.
For this we say unto you by the word of the Lord, that we which are alive and remain unto the coming of the Lord shall not prevent them which are asleep.
So those who are alive when the Lord returns, or those who are alive on this earth when the Lord makes his second coming, are not going to prevent them who have died in Christ from getting their reward. This is the context. Let's keep reading.
For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout.
Go ahead.
With the voice of the archangel and with the trump of God.
What's going to happen?
And the dead in Christ shall rise first.
The first resurrection is when he comes. You have a second resurrection 1,000 years later. But it said, for the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, with the trump of God, and the dead in Christ shall rise first. Then what's going to happen?
Then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds.
Go ahead.
To meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord.
And that's how you can come with him, because he's descending in order to come with him before he comes down to this earth, and you have to meet him in the air. And then everybody's coming back down on this earth to take over this earth. He said, then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with him in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. Wherefore comfort one another with these words. Let's go to the book of Zechariah. Because people don't want to believe. You have to put the Bible together. This is Zechariah. And we'll pick it up in Zechariah, the 14th chapter, and verse 3. Zechariah 14:3. When you're ready, brother, go ahead.
Then shall the Lord go forth and fight against those nations, as when he fought in the day of battle.
Okay, so it's talking about when the Lord returns. Let's keep reading.
And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives.
Why the Mount of Olives? Because that's where he ascended from. You read that in Acts 1. And the disciples, as they look up, standing there gazing, the angel tells them he's coming back in like manner, and he left from the mount called Olivet. So he's coming back. We're going to find out he's not alone, which goes right along with 1 Thessalonians 4. But it says, and his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof toward the east and toward the west, and there shall be a very great valley, and half of the mountains shall remove toward the north, and half of it toward the south. Let's keep reading.
And ye shall flee to the valley of the mountains, for the valley of the mountains shall reach unto Azal.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Ye shall flee like as ye fled from before the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah.
Okay, this is what's happening when he returns. And who is he coming with? Go ahead.
And the Lord my God shall come, and all the saints with him.
Because they met him in the air, and they're coming down to take over this world. And that, brothers and sisters, is a little bit on the rapture, or the lack thereof. There is no rapture during Great Tribulation. Just to recap. Great Tribulation is 3.5 years. Okay, and what sets the Great Tribulation in motion is the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place. In other words, that's when the Pope whoever the Pope of Rome is at that time is going to stand in the constructed temple, the third temple that will be built. And that's going to usher in great tribulation. And what should you do at that time? You should flee at that time. Where should you flee to? Detroit, Baltimore, Harlem, Gary, Compton? No. You're going to, if you understand this book, you're going to Jordan. Okay? And the Lord will make a way. Because people right now, I got to get a passport, and the Lord's going to make it. They didn't get a passport coming out of Egypt. The Lord's going to make a way for you. Okay? So, and those who don't make it, those saints that don't, many of them will suffer and die. And that's just the nature of this thing. We read that in Daniel. We read it in Revelation. That's what's going to happen. Many, just like they did in the first century. Go and read what happened to first century Christians. This is what's going to happen during this time of persecution, during Great Tribulation. And you're going to have this one that's going to bring forth this mark. If you don't bow down to this image and take this mark, you cannot buy and sell. But if you do take the mark, you're going to hell. And you need to be like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael, and not take the mark. Not bow down, even if it means giving up your life. And then what's going to happen after that 3.5-year Great Tribulation? The Lord is going to return to this earth, and you're going to have the first resurrection. The dead are going to be resurrected first, and then immediately after that, you have those who are alive and who are servants of Christ, servants of the Lord. They are going to be resurrected. And that's a little bit on the Great Tribulation and the false doctrine of the rapture. So it's my prayer that you will edify.